So if you haven't been paying attention to what's been going on, let me catch you up on a few things. Establishment Democrats are being defeated in primary races across the country by radical socialist candidates. One of the most recent examples of that is in Wisconsin's gubernatorial race, where card-carrying DSA member Francesca Hong is positioned to win the Democratic nomination. Hong builds support among far-left activists by embracing and promoting positions such as defunding the police and abolishing the Senate. But now that she's looking beyond the primary and preparing to face the Republican candidate with independent and moderate voters to account for in the general election, she's trying to walk back many of those statements and posts that were removed or deleted from the internet. But everyone should know by now, the internet is forever. And now another resurfaced post of hers that shows exactly who she is has surfaced. This one, she's calling for Thanksgiving to be canceled. And so, yeah, this is becoming a pattern we're seeing here if you've been paying attention. These candidates use radical rhetoric to gain support, money, and attention inside the socialist movement. Then once the establishment Democrats have been pushed out and the general election becomes real, they suddenly attempt to convince everyone that now that they were never as radical as their own words suggested. And, you know, if you ask me personally, the timing is just a little bit too convenient, right? And when they're not trying to distance themselves from their previous comments, they're attempting to normalize them. A socialist candidate out of Colorado was recently asked about communists operating within her political movement. Instead of rejecting that influence, she compared having communists in the party to having capitalists inside the Democrat Party. Yeah. And then there's Abdul who is running for the U.S. Senate in the swing state of Michigan. He's now comparing America's resistance to Sharia law with historical racial events such as the Tulsa Race Massacre. I mean, give me a break. I already know why that comparison was made. That is straight out of the Democratic playbook. Invoke historical racial suffering connected to something completely irrelevant in a current political issue, and then use that emotion to connect and persuade black voters to support the candidate. And so we have a lot to get into, as always, and we're going to break it all down. But if you do enjoy the content, smash the thumbs up button. That's the best way you can let me know. Subscribe to stay locked in with the future videos. And shout out to everybody, especially those who watch to the very end. And so let's go ahead and jump into it right over here. And so first I want to start right here. Let me show you this because this demonstrates the level of deception these people will apply. Take a listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Francesca Hong is running for governor of Wisconsin. When she aired this commercial, her restaurant had failed, shut for over a year. Allegedly, she was being sued by Capital One for $30K in unpaid debt, and her parents had to pay. And her only income was from politics. And so take a listen to this.
It's so stressful to get by these days. And I know a lot about stress. I work in restaurants. I started in this kitchen 15 years ago, and you might recognize what's across the street. A lot of people in that building don't get why it's so hard to get by right now. Working hard doesn't mean you can always keep up. One wrong step can lay you out flat. This is by design. I'm State Representative Francesca Hong. I'm a service worker, community organizer, and a mom. I work for a living, always have, still do. 5 years ago, my community sent me to the Capitol. The system is rigged. I'm running for governor to fix it. For years, we've been told that doing better isn't possible. Well, let me tell you, that's bullshit. All we need to do is fight together. We can fully fund our public schools and have universal childcare. We can guarantee paid leave and have cheaper healthcare. We can fix a rigged system that puts oligarchs over workers and small businesses. We can do better. Don't let anyone tell you we can't do this. We can build a Wisconsin where we share the table. I'm Francesca Hong, and I'm running for governor because I know that together we make better possible.
And so there you have that. And there seems to be a pattern with these DSA candidates, whether it's the Seattle mayor, Mom Donnie, and now you have this lady, where you have these individuals who are relatively young. They failed at multiple points in their life. They've had mommy and daddy to be able to bail them out, it seems. And then instead of actually looking in the mirror and saying they need to be better, they need to do better, they say, no, it's the system that's rigged. It's not my fault. It's just a rigged system. That's why I suck at life and I failed so much. So I'm going to get into politics and change things. That way the government can now solve the problems that I sucked at this whole time. That's what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen. And so let's get into this whole Thanksgiving thing now, where it says socialist Wisconsin then Francesca Hong on the hot seat after canceled Thanksgiving posts emerge online. And so let's take a read at this. Francesca Hong, the likely Democratic nominee for governor in Wisconsin, backed by the Democratic Socialists of America, once argued that Americans should not celebrate Thanksgiving. Canceled Thanksgiving should have done this in 1621, Hong wrote in a now deleted post to X. If it takes a worldwide pandemic for us to realize that we should stop celebrating colonialism and the original super spreader event that killed indigenous folks and women, to be it, she added, referring to the spread of smallpox and killed many indigenous Americans. The post, which was originally made in November 2020, sheds more light on Hong's progressive thinking as she emerges as the front runner in Wisconsin's Goobert National Contest and drew mockery online. But wait, there's more. These are the people who are getting elected, and establishment Democrats should be ashamed, ladies and gentlemen. They should be ashamed that they even allowed these type of people to even have a shot. These are lunatics, ladies and gentlemen. There's no other way to word it. It's not. Take a listen to this. There's more. Hong also started getting mocked online from a Resurfaced 2019 post where she said, I ate 2 bites of my kid's cheeseburger at a Culver's in Black River Falls and told them they ran out of ice cream. Mostly just wanted to leave because I was on the verge of an anxiety attack. Too many old white people who didn't think we spoke English. And so there's that, ladies and gentlemen, but there's also more. And so let's hop over here where Democratic Francesca Hong says that Ilhan Omar, who said that America was once the worst country, inspires her. And so take a listen to this.
Talk about why it's important for you to have the backing of such a polarizing figure, even though she's not from your state. Why does this matter to you to have her there, and why is she important to your race?
The Congresswoman has done a phenomenal job of showing what it looks like to lead with moral conviction and courage. I'm deeply inspired by the fact that the issues that she's championing for human rights, for childcare, for ensuring paid leave, these are things that Americans care about all across the country. And when people are polarizing, not the issues, but manufacturing lies about her, I think that it's important that our women and girls and kids all across the country see 2 strong women of color come together fighting for everyone's rights. Doesn't matter what your background, your zip code, or what your faith may be.
So she's inspired by Ilhan Omar, card-carrying DSA member. Need I say more? It's going to be very interesting come general election to watch how Wisconsin goes. It is a swing state. And so it's going to be interesting to see where the moderates, where the independents, where they lean. I don't see how you could look at this candidate, look at this woman and say, yeah, she's good for your state anywhere. But we're going to have to see. But there's more, ladies and gentlemen. There is more. Listen to this. When she's called out for supporting men and women's sports, she dodges it and starts to talk about minimum wage, ladies and gentlemen. This is just insulting. If you are a voter, this should be highly insulting to you if you're a voter in Wisconsin. Take a listen.
You championed in the legislature trans-inclusive legislation, even as public opinion has shifted. Big majorities now support bans on trans females in women's sports and medical interventions for minors. So what are you going to tell Tom Tiffany when he calls you a radical trans activist?
What's radical is that we still have a $7.25 minimum wage.
You championed in the legislature.
Yeah, so there's that. But you know what? Let's go ahead and move on because there is more, ladies and gentlemen. You got MS Now. They're sitting down with the DSA leader out of Chicago at an organizing summit. And take a listen to this because I mentioned this before about how this was going to start to happen. once they became more vocal, more public. Since Mamdani's election, these people have been more vocal, more public, doing more interviews, telling you exactly who they are, exactly what they plan to do, exactly what their platform and what they stand for. But here's the quick, trick of hand, ladies and gentlemen, what they're doing, at least in my opinion. They were just using that to gauge exactly how radical they can get away with being. And so now you have leadership. We've seen it with some of these candidates, and now you have some of their actual DSA member leadership trying to walk back and say a few things differently that contradict what you'll find on their website, that contradict what they've been saying this entire time. And so now take a listen to this.
Let's talk about the platform.
Sure.
What's interesting is abolish the police is not in here.
The language that we actually have about the criminal justice system talks about how currently our police and prison system is stacked toward persecuting poor people and excusing rich people's crimes. I personally have no problem with having something called a prison be the place where people like that are kept if they can't be rehabilitated.
So why is abolish prisons the thing? Is it just that it is...
The language that we have in there is abolishing the police and prison system that protects capital over people. These horrible crimes that have been perpetrated by some of the most powerful people in society are being protected by this system, which is instead mostly going after people for, having some weed or for jumping a turnstile on the trains.
They could, take all of the anger that's happening in this country and transition it into something real. And so when you talk about, that little pamphlet I had was something that they were giving out to everyone. And what was not in there was the stuff that has gotten the most attention. There are a lot of things on there, but what wasn't in that paper was there was no abolish the U.S. Senate, which has gotten them pilloried. There was no abolish the Defense Department. There was nothing about defunding the police. That was not in there. And what he said to me was, this document that I was holding in my hand was put together in the last month. So to me, that signals that there may be some changes coming to the platform.
Yeah, so there's that. Don't really think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out what these people are doing. They use one tactic to get them to their current position, which was be as far left radical as they can be, because they saw weakness within the Democrat Party, no leadership, no direction. Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, you can thank them. All they had was Trump bad, hate Trump. And so they swooped in, they saw Mamdani win, and they used all that momentum to propel themselves into this current position, where now they have an opportunity come November to pick up some seats in the House and the Senate, maybe to win a few governor races going on in the country. And in order for them to do that, especially in states that are toss-up states, they are not going to be able to get away with being that far left and radical. That is ammo for the Republican Party to be able to use to take these people out. And so now they're trying to say, no, well, that's not us anymore. We're different. We've changed. This is our new agenda. Less than 100 days away from the midterm elections. This is not a hard one to add up when it comes to political game planning. But let's go ahead and move on and jump into this, where I mentioned earlier about Abdul El-Sayed, and take a listen to this clip where he tries to rationalize United States rejection of Sharia law, comparing that to things such as the Tulsa massacre. Take a listen to this.
About events that I remember because I was an adult when they happened. And that was question 755. When the state of Oklahoma voted in a referendum to amend the Constitution to ban Sharia law. What does that mean? I don't know. And yet the voters banned it anyway. What I offer today is just a reflection on the American history that runs through this state. You all sitting in this room, in this town, we're sitting in a space, in a time when I don't have to tell you that the same exact forces that drove native peoples from their land 2 centuries ago, destroyed Black Wall Street a century ago, bombed a building decades ago, and tried to ban Sharia law not a decade ago, that those forces are alive and well today. And the reason I wanted to go all the way back to the 1830s is because you can't understand a Sharia ban without understanding the Trail of Tears. You can't understand the efforts to uproot Muslim Americans without understanding the Tulsa massacre. You cannot understand the challenges we face today without understanding white supremacy. We have to set it in the context of our history.
Yeah, and so there you have that. This guy's absolutely insane. The more you listen to these people talk, the more it helps you realize just how far gone the Democrat Party had to be for these people to be able to come in, take over, and defeat establishment Democrats. This guy's trying to compare the ban on Sharia law in Oklahoma to the Tulsa massacre, Black Wall Street, saying that it's a product of white supremacy. The ban on Sharia law is a product, it's the forces of white supremacy. Wow. Let's move on to the Democrat Socialist candidate out of Colorado, Milat Kairos. She's a wolf in sheep's clothing. And so take a listen to this as she's asked, is she a communist? You have her answer, and then listen to her compare communism to capitalists being in the Democrat Party. Take a listen to this.
First, are you a communist?
No, I'm not a communist.
How do you tackle the criticism that some members of the DSA, including half of the DSA leadership, seem to call themselves communist?
Yeah, well, some members of the Democratic Party are proudly proclaiming themselves as capitalists, and it's a big tent, right? But again, at the end of the day, it's up to the voters, right? Until a self-proclaimed communist actually wins an election, then it's just noise from the Republican Party.
And so there you have that, absolutely insane to listen to. She's trying to normalize communism and compare it to capitalism. Capitalists are inside the Democrat Party, and you don't think there's anything wrong with that, so what's wrong with communists? That's what she's trying to sell people on. There should be room for both. It's a big tent party. I mean, that's the whole saying now, right? I mean, wow. That's everything that's going on right now, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we're going to see. Democrats have really painted themselves into a corner here, because this should have been, for all intents and purposes, I don't know if you could say blue wave, but Democrats should have pretty much had it in the bag when it came to this year. Historically speaking, that's how it goes. And now we're going to see, are these far left candidates who now trying to walk things back, now trying to attempt to make themselves, in some instances, specifically these purple states, they're trying to act like they're not as radical, not as far left as what they've this entire time what they've been. And so we're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, because these people are absolutely delusional. And the fact that you have groups of individuals who are agreeing with this, I mean, unless you know where we're at as a country, unfortunately, with this type of mindset and with this level of thought, but we'll have to see. I'm going to keep you guys up to date with everything that keeps coming. Those were my thoughts along with the update. Now I want to hear from you. Drop your comments down below. I do appreciate when you guys take the time to chime in. Don't forget, you enjoy the content. Smash that thumbs up button for more. Subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.